Hi Sebastian, I've got your Unit 4 test here. Unfortunately, you've been doing really well on all of your work so far. Unfortunately, we hit a little bit of a wall with the factoring. You've got a couple of sort of misunderstandings here, or maybe just not, strong enough understandings on this topic. So I just want to go through some of the corrections and have you practice this and make sure you really got it, especially going into grade 11 math, because you work so much with the functions in grade 11, and the manipulation of the algebra is just super important. You have to be able to do all this factoring in your sleep. So I've made some corrections here. Question 2 in part A and question 3, you didn't add your like terms together in the middle of your expansion. So I've circled the two like terms in each case, and in the first case you'll get 33x. In the second case, that's a difference of squares expansion, and you end up with the middle term canceling out. And so you should end up with just 16x squared minus 81 there. And then for question 2, 56 x squared plus 33x minus 20 for your trinomial answer. Now part B was better. You factored those really well using decomposition, I believe, and that's great. You've got a good understanding of that. You did that really well. Let's just move down to the second half of the test here. In part C, you did great. Your factors are all there, and everything's done perfectly, so that's great. Just be careful for number 6. It looks very much like a difference of squares, but it's not. You can factor a difference of squares, you cannot factor a sum of squares. And so that was kind of put in there to, kind of catch people who weren't thinking about the difference between the two. And then when we get to part D, let me just move this up a little bit so that we can see everything at the bottom here. Okay, part D. When you're factoring like this and your individual factors are actually binomial brackets, then the first one, when you do the difference of squares, is going to be the first bracket plus the second bracket. The second factor will be the first bracket minus the second bracket. You've got them multiplied on yours. Now if you simplify and you add up your like terms, you get 5x plus 5 and x plus 3, and you can factor a 5 out of the first one, and so your final factor with your equal signs that I forgot should look like I've got it at the bottom here. The second one is not factorable. The third one is, and in order to factor it, you need to make a substitution, and that substitution is letting some letter represent y cubed. The reason we do that is then that letter squared will be y to the 6th. If you do that substitution, we end up here with a trinomial that looks just like the ones you did in part C, and I know you know how to factor those. I've written the factors down at the bottom here, and the last step that I didn't have room for is to now go back and remember that you substituted a equals y squared. So everywhere that you have an a in this part, you want to substitute y squared back in. So it's going to be 2y squared minus 3 and y squared plus 8 for your final factors. That one's a little tricky. Part D is questions that are just maybe one step beyond what you would have done in your homework, but you have the skills to do it. So there's a problem-solving component added into those. And so those ones you really have to kind of slow down and give yourself some time to think through and see if there's a solution. And don't forget, please, too, that you can also email me, even if you're working on an assignment or a test. And you can check with me. I won't do the question for you, but I'll tell you if you're on the right track and maybe give you a couple of hints, because for me, tests and assessments are all about the learning. So you're doing great. You're really moving fast, and I'm going to do a midterm report for you because you're halfway through the course now. And just let me know if you run into problems from here on in. I'm glad to help. Okay, thanks.